Hi, everyone. I'm Sunil Kalgi, the founder and CEO of Outclip. So today I'm interviewing Karthik Shashidhar, who is the founder and director of Bespoke Consulting. So Karthik is a data analytics and a quant expert based in London. He has numerous accomplishments to his name. He's authored a book on market design, which I read and really enjoyed, and I suggest recommend the same for you. He's a columnist for Bloomberg. He puts out a newsletter on data science, and he's a prolific blogger. So he recently started making videos to tell stories with data, and that's the topic of our conversation. So Karthik, welcome to this interview.
Hi,
And
Sunil.
please could you tell us about Bespoke Consulting and the work you do?
Yeah, so this is something I started about 7 years ago in India, and by the way, I'm moving to back to India very soon, back to Bangalore. So the idea is that, like, I mean, it's about like you see that I started it back before data science actually became a thing. So the basic idea was that, like, there are a lot of everyday business problems that you can solve better if you can make decisions using data. So the idea is to just basically help businesses make better decisions using data, to use their business data to help them build models for everyday decision making, and then to drive strategic change based on data and so on.
Got it. And what kind of clients do you work with? What industry are they in? Finance, consumer, and so on.
Yeah, actually, I've worked with a fairly broad range of clients. Actually, I mean, like I've worked with my clients include the largest life insurance company in India and quite a few fintech startups. And so it's largely been in finance, though I've also done a fair amount of work in retail. And right now, I'm doing some fairly interesting stuff on the pricing front, and that should come out fairly soon enough. And also, like, I mean, like I've done some work with some not for profits.
You mentioned you worked on bespoke consulting for the last 7 years. So
Yep.
how long have you worked in data analytics in general?
Right from day one. I mean, I think data analytics has been the bread and butter of what I've been doing. So
Okay.
I think recently, over the last a couple of years, is when I've kind of really upped my game on the machine learning kind of front. But like the core offering still remains data analytics, and how businesses can use data analytics to kind of improve their products, improve their businesses, and so on.
Okay. Now you've been doing a lot of data storytelling lately. So can you tell us what is data storytelling and why is it useful?
Yeah, so sometimes what happens is that, I mean, like you can just come across a piece of data, or like for, uh, take a piece of data that you have and like kind of twist and turn it in an interesting way that the data itself can tell a story. So I think what a lot of people uh, do is that they take data, present it in one way, and then write a 1,000 word essay trying to explain what they're doing. But then, like, what I figured is that, like, you know, the cliche that a picture can tell 1,000 words, or a picture equals 1,000 words. So sometimes you can just show a picture which you can kind of, if you've drawn the graph in a nice way and so on, the data itself will tell you the story. And it's almost like you can just introduce the data somewhere, and then like you can just for example, one of the happiest days of my consulting career has been like this one day when I was with a client. I was on call, and like they were having a bit of a argument about one of their about something. I don't the specific thing doesn't matter. All I did was to kind of present to them data in a particular format. It was just a chart that I showed that in terms of like how something was distributed and so on. And just looking at the chart, that completely kind of resolved their discussion and conflict and so on, because the chart told the story extremely precisely. And because of that, like there was no more disagreement on how they should kind of formulate their policies and so on.
Got it. So it's a very clear way of bringing out kind of insights that are hidden in the data and then explaining it to an audience so they can take action based on that.
Yeah, and I think the best graphs are those which are like kind of where you don't even need to explain to an audience. You can just put it out there, and people see it, and they're like, oh shit, why didn't I think of it this way before? Or like it's basically about like just twisting and turning the data, or as industry experts call it, slicing and dicing the data. And then like that will kind of result in the message being right in front of you. Of course, what happens is that if you can't make great visualizations all the time. Sometimes like you kind of slack off, and sometimes you kind of there's no really good intuitive way to show the data and stuff. And in those cases, you make a slightly inferior visualization. In which case, you will actually need to tell stories around the data. So
So
the data can't tell its own stories in those cases.
got it. So you've been doing a lot of data storytelling of late with your
Yep.
project called Deep Extra Cover.
Yep, that's
So
a temporary name, by the way. I for the lack of a better name, I normally suck at nomenclature. So hopefully I'll
okay,
come up with a better name soon. So
yeah. I mean, the name's pretty good. I feel,
yeah,
in
it's a
the
nice
placeholder that
placeholder.
you have.
Yep,
So just to give the audience an idea of deep extra cover, so what you're doing is you're analyzing cricket matches
yep,
in a very different way, and you're making videos on YouTube to tell people like a different story about the match that was just played.
yep,
So to a Western audience, like cricket is probably unfamiliar, but it's a very popular game in a number of countries, India included, um, and uh, and there's a huge following of the game of cricket. And people often after the game go up and look at cricket websites to see what happened. And you're giving a very different perspective on the game. So can you tell us about the Deep Extra Cover project? Like why and when did you start this project?
So I think this started actually again pretty much 7 years back. 2012 was when I started, and then like I think it was inspired by some of the work that I had done. So I used to prior to starting my consulting, I used to work for Goldman Sachs, the investment bank, and there I had been building some models for derivative pricing and for execution of equity deals and so on. And I noticed that the way I was kind of pricing derivatives was could actually be applied to evaluating a cricket match. So it was around then, like in 2012. So the basic idea is that like you can kind of come up with some kind of a winning score for a kind of a win probability score for every possible situation, and then like you can use that to evaluate the game. And so what happened was like around the same time, a couple of scientists in New Zealand came up with a system that they called as the WASP, called or the winning and scoring predictor, which pretty much did exactly the same thing, and they put their code out there. And so, like, what I have is basically an improved version of the WASP, taking into account things like the nature of the pitch and the conditions, and the actually like there's a small amount of learning element in the model that as the game goes along, it learns about how the pitch is behaving and adjusts the probabilities accordingly and things like that. So, and then I figured that like once you have like the probabilities of each team winning at the end of every one, you can pretty much join them up, and that tells you the story of the game. It
Got
tells
it.
you like whether team one really ran away with it, or whether there was a close contest, or whether the game moved seesaw between the two teams, and so like and yeah, that's how the app was the app or the model was born.
Okay. And is this model, does it give you a real-time picture of as the game is progressing?
Yes, it does
The win
give a
probability?
real-time picture.
Okay.
It does give a real-time probability, except that I think so far I haven't yet finished the plumbing. Hopefully, I should have something in place before the IPL begins this month. So where like it will actually, I'll be able to show the probabilities in real time. And though I don't know, I mean it's still a model. I mean it's a model, so I don't know. I haven't really tested it against, let's say, the betting markets and so on, so which should have a better picture of what the exact probabilities are. But it gives us a good way to evaluate the game, to look at the story of the game, to look at individual player contributions, and so on.
Okay. Just a quick clarification for the audience who are not familiar. So IPL is the Indian Premier League, which is an annual cricket championship that happens in India every April. And you're basically that's your next project, which is analyzing IPL games using your deep extra cover
Yeah,
model.
analyzing them live. I mean, like so far, I think over the last 1 month, I think ever since I started using Outlook to record my videos, I've been like analyzing the game in a post facto manner in terms of like once the game is done. Now, what I plan to do in the IPL, I mean, I may not do it for, I won't do it for every game, but like at least the app will be hopefully up and running, that during the game, instead of looking at the scorecard and wondering which team is ahead, you can look at my app and see which team is ahead, how the game has played out so far, and like whether it's worth watching. the rest of the game.
Okay. Could you give us a brief overview of the Deep Extra Cover app itself? Like what have you written it in? What's the and a
Oh,
little bit of insight on the model, which some of our audience might appreciate.
okay. So the basic model is what is known as the WASP, which was created by a couple of scientists from the University of Otago. I think they were statisticians. It's about 7 or 8 years old, the model. So it's what you do is like each ball, using historical data, you can model the likelihood of different events, which is like basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out. And then like based on these probabilities, you know that you can calculate at the end of each ball what is the likelihood that the team is you'll score the number of runs required to win. And then like you kind of use some kind of the what in finance or in PDs we call as backward induction, or what computer scientists call as dynamic programming, to kind of extend this for every ball in the game. So you kind of have like a massive grid which tells you like if you're 30 for 3 after 10 overs, you have so much chance of winning the game. If you are, let's say, if you need 25 runs in 20 balls with 2 wickets in hand, this is the probability of winning, and so on. So it's basically a massive pre-calibrated grid which tells you based on the match situation what is the likelihood of each team winning. And you overlay on top of that, I mean, this is calculated for different kind of regimes of the pitch, as I call it, because like it could be like a batting wicket, bowling wicket, or like a slow turner, or a or a kind of a dead pitch or whatever. And then like there's a learning element which, as the game goes along, it learns what kind of a pitch this is being played on.
So it's really adaptive in that sense, based
It
on
is
where it's
adaptive.
played, which team is playing.
So for example, last week I think we had a game where was this where one of the teams, I think it was England, they scored I think 420. And if you look at the game, then normally in a one day match, the range of scores you see nowadays is between 250 and 300 for most of the games. So 420 was a massive outlier. But because my model was adaptive, it gave England about a 80% chance of winning for scoring 420, because it had understood that like it was because they had scored rather quickly. There's a good chance that it was a bowling pitch. And then the West Indies actually came close. They came to I think around 390 or something like that. So it was, they actually made a match of it. It wasn't a one-sided game at all.
Got it. And so you're taking the kind of the output of your model or your app, and
Yeah,
then you're presenting it to an audience and making videos for YouTube. So can you tell us about kind of why you decided to make videos for YouTube, and
yeah,
why
okay.
not blog about it instead?
So I started blogging about it. I think about a year back, I started blogging about it. So one thing is, so I think I mentioned right at the beginning of the video that if you make a great visualization, you don't need to tell a story about it. Unfortunately, in this case, I don't think I have yet been able to make a great visualization. I think if you can kind of look at the app itself, you'll see that like it's a there is one nice smooth graph, but then like there are a lot of annotations which I haven't yet found a clean way to kind of show, and so on. So what that means is that like I mean it's like it's not very, and people are, moreover people are not very used to seeing a cricket match in this way, in terms of this kind of a graph. So when I started putting it out just on Twitter or through my blog and through static graphs and stuff, I found that the uptake was rather slow, because the people didn't really understand or appreciate what the everything that was going on in the graph. So then somebody, one of my friends, mentioned that like I mean maybe I should make videos out of it, so that like I can explain all the nuances and I can explain everything that's going on in the graph and so on. So that's when I kind of decided to give it a shot to make videos.
And who's the audience you're catering to?
The audience I'm catering to, I think, are like kind of probably people who like to follow cricket, who kind of want to know what happened in the game. So it's a very quick. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been able to keep the videos as short as I wanted. I mean, like most videos are turning out between 6 and 7 minutes long. I think I wanted to keep it under 4 minutes. But anyway, it's a very quick overview of what happened in the game, what were the key moments, what were the key periods. So for example, like sometimes it can happen that like the major match reports would have kind of missed out on what was actually the key event in the game, because like you look at the scorecard in a rather conventional manner. But then if you look at how the story of the game in terms of where it swung and what the inflection points were, that tells you a completely different story of the game, and that's what I try to cover through the videos.
Okay. And how do you prepare for these videos? Do you just do it off the cuff, or do you have something on mind before you go on? You have a script?
Yeah, so what I do is I think like for example, like I recorded a video about 1 hour back today about for a match that was played yesterday. So what I did was to first look at the app for I mean like for T20s. Actually, my model actually runs by itself now every day. So there's a server where by the way, like you had asked me this earlier, I all my coding is done using the statistical software R, and I use a plugin called Shiny, which is a kind of a JavaScript front end to produce the app itself, to produce the web app itself. Anyway, so what I do is to first generate the graph for the game. I mean, it's a piece of code I just need to run manually, and then like upload it so that like I mean, there's a particular place where I upload it so that like people can analyze their game. So, for example, I have about more than 2,000 one-day internationals are covered in my in using my app. So everything played since the mid 2001, I think, is there. So you can go back and look at your favorite games to see how exactly they panned out, whether you remember the story of the game correctly, and so on. So yeah, so I first pull up the game. I just have a few annotations in the app which tells you what the key periods were, key moments were, and so on. And then there's a bit of an enhanced scorecard which also tells you what each person's contribution to the game was, each player. So yeah, so I look at that, and that gives me a good idea of what exactly happened in the game and what stood out. And I make a mental note of all the things that stood out. And then like when I start recording the video, then the idea is to just cover all these things that stood out.
Okay. Just to quickly recap, so you've got this model running on a Shiny service,
Yes.
and you're making videos that kind of give your story of the match, and then you
Yep.
have a link to your Shiny app so people can click on it and then go in and play for themselves and
Yep.
configure various things and see kind of different slices and dices of the data.
Exactly. I mean, that's the hope, but I mean, like, I mean, there's still more that can be done. Like, for example, there's still plenty more to be done. So, for example, there's a I want to give people the ability to do more analysis of the game than they like right now. It's just a see, one thing in data visualization is that like I mean, the person who makes the visualization usually controls the message. You make it in a way that like gives the user the message you want him to know. So in that sense, I think what I've put out there is kind of based on what I've found interesting and so on. So I think like going forward, what I hope to do is to kind of come up with a way in which like people can analyze the data in a way that is useful to them, so that they can see what's interest. They can base it on what's interesting to them rather than like what's interesting to me. And so there are quite a few enhancements in store, which hopefully through the course of the year I should be able to push through.
So you mentioned, so you are an Outclip user.
Yep.
What features do you use in Outclip, and why do you use them?
So I think the first, I think the key things that kind of caught my attention when I first came across Outclip. One was that I could overlay the screen text with my face somewhere in the corner. So I could kind of this was the most intuitive way I could find where I could kind of record both the webcam and the screen and my voice together completely seamlessly without any kind of post processing. So it's extremely easy to use. And the second thing that I always use is the push to YouTube, which is just one button, one click. So within 2 minutes of having done the recording, the video is up on YouTube, and I can share it and so on. So there's no kind of cycle where, like for example, where I would, let's say, record it in quick time and then like try to do some processing and then upload and so on, which is like, so it's a very so for me, like while people might think I'm good at tech, I'm not really. I don't like tech. I don't like to get involved with the nitty gritties of tech. So from that perspective, I think what Outclip offers me is that like it's a very user-friendly app. It kind of makes it very easy for me to kind of record my videos and upload them. It's almost like a what they used to tell in the Hero Honda ad 25 years ago: fill it, shut it, forget it. So,
I'm
so
glad you found it easy to use.
it's
Uh,
extremely easy to use.
and what features will you need going forward? How do you what are the things that you might do to enhance your videos, and how could
So
uh,
one feature which I think
that be helpful?
I'm definitely looking for, which is in terms of like, so one of the feedback that I've got for my videos is that like maybe it might help for it to be a conversation rather than me doing the entire talking myself. It might help if I were talking to somebody else through the game, through the app. So now, if it were, I mean, I don't need both people's videos, but if it were possible to record a conversation using Outclip, like where there is my screen being shown and there are two voices being heard, one my voice and one the remote voice. If I mean, that would be an absolutely fantastic feature to have because that will, you can enable us to kind of record videos, record conversations. So, for example, just this conversation between you and me, there were points in the conversation when I was like, okay, maybe I should have shared my screen, like I was when I was talking about the curves and I was talking about the product features and stuff. I was like, maybe I could have shared my screen and shown what was happening and so on. So if we were doing it, so imagine a version of Outclip where there was you, there was me, and there was either your screen or my screen, or even in the most fantastic case, both our screens, and then like we could switch between them at will and like kind of uh, 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 use them as visual aids through the conversation rather than, let's say, our audience just looking at our faces through the conversation. So that should have been a that should be an absolutely brilliant additional feature to have.
So I see your YouTube channel is racking up subscribers, and
Yeah, and also it's like it's got like it's racking up subscribers, and also like I don't know, I'm getting some trolls who are like already reporting my video for copyright infringement and taking it down. With- so hopefully, yeah, I mean, hopefully not too many of the, I mean, those trolls will get silenced soon, but yeah, I mean, uh,
yeah, I see your videos. I mean they're pretty very original, and it's all entirely your content. So I hope they don't get taken down for any further.
I hope so as well. I hope the guys at at Google who kind of review these requests will see that there's no plagiarized content in this.
So what response have you got from people who viewed your videos?
So I think I guess this is still the beginning. I think I've probably put out about 10 or 15 videos at max so far. So the response is still like, I mean, like I'm getting a lot of inputs on how I can make it better and so on. So I think people who enjoy the core product, which is the core app, they have kind of been enjoying the videos in terms of like the little explanations here and there and so on. But yeah, I think all the only content, the comments I've gotten has been on the content and delivery itself, and not on the way I have been recording the app, the videos, and so on.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. So Karthik, you're prolific in that you work on a number of different projects. So I want to talk about that. So
Yep.
you send out a monthly newsletter called The Art of Data Science.
Yep.
So can you tell us what that is about and what do you want to achieve with that?
So okay, that's a very interesting question because I really don't know what I want to achieve with that. It's just like, so for example, I've been writing for the last 16 years, I think, but I've never really thought about why I've been writing. I just write for myself and like kind of if some good comes out of it. I mean, so far a lot of good has come out of my writing, but like if some good comes of it, it's great. So newsletter, I think like I figured there's a coherent set of stuff I want to write on and which may not be appropriate for the blog. So it started when I kind of moved to London 2 years ago and figured that the way data science was being practiced here was very different from what I had been used to because I come from more of an analytics background, while here it seems like a extremely things, if you're not using machine learning, it's not data science kind of a thing. So there were a lot of thoughts I had, and I initially wanted to share it with a uh, small set of people whom by not putting it out in public and so on. But so I started the newsletter, and then the response was great. And then I was like, okay, I won't lose much by sharing it with the larger set. Maybe I just need to be a little more discreet, but that's about it. And so I started writing, and the response has been really good, really encouraging. People have told me that they like the newsletter and stuff, and that's what has probably kept it going for the last 2 years.
Yeah, subscribe to your newsletter, and it covers kind of your perspective on
Yeah,
artificial intelligence, machine
it's
learning.
opinionated. It's highly opinionated. It's my take on what's happening in the world of data science and analytics and artificial intelligence and so on. So, but it's a it's but I don't try to be balanced or anything. It's just my opinion.
And another project you have going is a Tumblr page with bad data
Oh, yes.
visualization. So it
Yes.
seems like data visualization is kind of your one of your pet areas.
Yeah,
So can you
possibly.
tell us more about your Tumblr page and
Yeah,
your
so the Tumblr page is simply
platform?
called bad visualizations. So the idea there is that, like, I mean, so every now and then on Twitter, I would kind of whenever I would see a bad visualization, I would it really hurts my eyes when I see a visualization done badly and stuff. So I would just tweet it and be like, okay, why did somebody make this graph? It's so horrible because of this, and so on. And then somebody mentioned, like, why don't you just start collecting and documenting this in one place? Maybe you can create a Tumblr page. And then I found Tumblr to be an extremely useful and easy to use thing for this kind of a use case, because all I had to do was to kind of just download the video from the graph from whichever site I saw it, upload it on Tumblr, and just I had to just give it a 2-line commentary. And sometimes I don't even give the commentary because some of my readers are so used to what I say that I don't need to add further comments. And so, like, yeah, so that's how it started. And again, it's got a fair amount of traction on Twitter and a fair amount of positive impact. And so I've kept going.
So I'm down to my last couple of questions for you. Uh,
Yep.
so the what you have done so far on YouTube are videos to explain sports analytics.
Yep.
You have a core product which does a very unique analysis of a cricket match,
Yep.
and you're making videos to describe that. Now, do you see the potential for data storytelling in other realms, maybe in business, could be in other areas altogether? So, any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the way I see it, cricket is just the start. I mean, like, I've just kind of made a plan on how I'm going to take this forward and so on. So it's basically about, like, I started with cricket because I had a good model for it. I had a unique way of telling the stories related to cricket and so on. There's also, and I see potential for doing this in several other realms, like business, yeah, government data, public policy and so on. So hopefully soon enough I'll start making videos there as well. I think the advantage of videos is that, like, you can show multiple you can condense a lot of information in a short amount of time, and also, like, kind of present your view on it. Sometimes what happens is that if I show you a bunch of graphs, you may not really understand what's happening. You might gloss over them. A lot of people are very phobic to numbers and so on, so they might just give it a skip and stuff. But in a video, I think the advantage is that, like, I can take you through it. I can give you the information. I can teach you how to interpret it. I can tell you what it is saying. It's basically, I mean, I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but you can literally spoon feed the viewer in case of a video. So I think it's a great way, and it's a great way, and you can really put your own personal stamp on it, because my interpretation of the video is very different from your interpretation of the same graph and so on. So I think I can put my own brand on it, and I can, like, just really so yes, I plan to do this for several other things as well.
And my last question for you: do you have advice for anyone who's starting out, who does data science or data analytics, and now they want to dabble in making videos to tell stories with data? So, how do they start out, and what are some of the best practices that you want to share with them?
So I think the most important thing is that, like, before you start telling a story, you need to know what story you're going to tell. And then, like, I mean, and then you make your visualizations. So I guess what I've done here is, with the deep extra cover thing, it's almost like I have a visualization, and I use that to explain the story. But sometimes what you can do is, like, I mean, this is what I intend to do when I move beyond cricket, is that, like, you create the visualizations based on the stories you want to tell, and then, like, kind of weave together a story and, like, kind of present it coherently. Remember that you can totally be opinionated, because when you're making a video, you're not a reporter or a journalist. You are telling your version of the story. So you make the visualizations that tell your story, and because the video gives you an opportunity to take the audience along, like, I mean, you can tell the story the way you want to.
Great. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing your perspective and telling us more about Deep Extra Cover and your other projects. And so I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Sunil. Thanks for first of all, thanks for Outclip, and thanks for having me on this chat.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. All right. Goodbye.
Cheers. Bye.